Kurtis from the Epic Marvel Podcast, and I am thrilled that you have made it all the way here to my third video, especially after that last one, which was just watching my screen as I used Photoshop. Well, I hate to break it to you, we're going to do another one of those videos where it's just my screen watching me use Photoshop. We're going to be working on our title page today. All of the Epic collections have this really nice title page with a little black and white image on it, and we'll work on that today to make it look as much as a real Epic collection as we can. After my last video, a bunch of people asked, well, why are you using Photoshop instead of, Illustrator or InDesign or something like that? And admittedly, those would be better programs to use because they're vector-based, and you would get some much nicer, cleaner lines, and the fonts would be much smoother. Photoshop isn't like that, but I am more comfortable with Photoshop, and I'm self-taught on all of this Adobe stuff, so I'm going to go with what I'm most comfortable with. But if you are more comfortable with InDesign or Illustrator, then more power to you. Make sure you skip ahead to the end of the video and we'll take a look at what the finished table of contents and credit page and title page all look like together back to front when it's all printed out nicely. Okay, here we go. We're looking at Photoshop once again. And just like the last time, I've pulled one of the title pages from the Kindle preview on Amazon of this, in this case, is Marvel 2-in-1 Epic Collection, Volume 1. And this is what's going to serve as our basis for a title page. Because I'm making Epic collections, I want mine to look as close to, an Epic collection as possible. So we're just going to, again, layer all of our things over top of here to make it look almost pretty much exactly the same. So the first thing we're going to do, and this is something I probably should have done on the other video, is I'm putting some guide bars around here that'll help me be able to position my items. Mode, you want to make sure this is CMYK color as last time. And then go to image size to make sure that your resolution is at 300, which this one is. And yeah, these settings are pretty much the same as what I had last time with the table of contents. So the next thing I'm going to do is change the canvas size, because unlike the Epic collections, this is going to have a back page, because this is going to be the reverse of the table of contents / credits page, which is 2 pages. So we have to fill up 2 pages on the other side as well. So here's our canvas size, and so the width and the height, this is, I work in centimeters because I'm Canadian, but I'm going to switch it to inches for you guys. So that's the same height, but we're going to double the width. 1334, and I want this actual image to stay justified to the right, so it'll just be an extra page that we're adding basically on that side. There it is. I'll add one more guide bar on that side, and now we're going to go back to canvas and we're going to increase around the edge about 1 inch on either side, because we want to account for some bleed. So that's the width has to increase by 2 inches, the height has to increase by 2 inches. I'm going to keep our main image in the middle. Bam, there we go, all around. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is try to recreate our Epic Collection font, which if you saw my last video, I used one called Plaquette, and I have it right here. So we're just going to copy this, paste it right on there. Now, I don't know if you noticed in my last video that I accidentally changed the resolution after I had set my height and width. And so it ended up being actually really big. My canvas size, really big. So we're working with a smaller canvas this time, but that's okay. We're gonna have to work with what we have. That's almost the same font size. We're gonna go a little bit smaller. That's about right. These words are a lot fatter. These letters. I didn't put mine quite as fat on the table of contents, but maybe we'll fatten them up here. just because. Increase the width. How much do I want to increase that? Let's make it around 250. So we want the rest of this to be 250 as well. Whoa, that's really, really wide. So the spacing in the middle has to be a little. Then of course these ones get to be really skinny. Because if you saw my last video, I don't like the way the W's and the M's look in plaquette, so I'm swapping them out for impact. But that means they have to be readjusted separately. 21. Okay, the spaces, I also want these to be much skinnier. 100%. 100%. That looks a lot better. Line it up with a purple line in the middle, means we're center between these two guides that we made. So that's handy thing, kind of snaps to place there. So let's just copy this now that we have the size all down and make a new one here. Boy, this font sure looks close, doesn't it, with the C's. In fact, I think it all looks like it's being stretched upwards. I might have my whole thing wrong for the table of contents and everything. No, it's not exactly the same. But let's lay this over top. See if we can get it to look exactly the same. So the font needs to get a little bit bigger. These are going to get a little skinnier. Whoa. The line spacing. Okay, let's zoom in on this so that we can see it a little bit better. Again, close enough. Let's make some lines. Use the line tool. Let's grab the brown, the orangey brown that we're using here. I think 5 pixels was probably too much. My table contents was using a bigger canvas, so 3 is probably good. Stretch it all the way back here for the bleed, for the sake of the bleed. And then we can rasterize this so we can edit the image. And I'm gonna just cut a big chunk out of the middle because we don't need it there. Okay. Starting to look okay, right? We're going to need a line here too. So let's draw another line. Hold down Shift so you get a nice straight line. There we go. And we'll work on these words down at the bottom here. So this is Calibri. That's what I'm using for this part here. Yeah, I know, that's not Calibri, is it? Let's change it. We want all this to just be 100%. And it's going to be much smaller. And you can see based on the number 1 that this is not the very same font because the volume has a little tail on the 1. but I can see that this is bold, so we're going to change this to bold there. In fact, it looks like it could be even super bold. And it's a little bigger. So close, so close. The words are just a tiny bit there. Yeah, that fits real nice, doesn't it? This volume contains only 1988 issues. Unbold all of that. This is now normal. We also want this centered. We want all of these words centered. Move that back over here. Purple line again in the middle means it's centered. And let's adjust our line spacing just so that goes right down there. Yeah. Nice. Next. What does this volume collect? ALF numbers 1 to 9 and ALF annual number 1. This one's much smaller too. Has to be moved up a bit. Smaller still. This actually looks kind of bold, doesn't it? Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it bold. And I think I got it too small, so I need to make it a little bit bigger. Yeah. Now, there's always a big logo right here. So I found a high-res ALF logo online. It's already got a transparent background. That's very handy. So I'm just going to paste that right in here. What do you think? Should it be ALF brown? Should we color it ALF brown? Then we'll make it a little bit bigger. That's how big the Marvel 2-in-1 logo is, so we'll stick with that. I want to put a stroke around this so that the shadows will stand out, because it's going to be against a black background, so we won't see this drop shadow. So let's select a stroke. Take out the drop shadow. Select stroke. Let's change the color to white. There, that looks nice. Okay, next we're going to make some boxes. And we're going to place them behind everything that we've been working on here. So let's zoom out a little bit. We're going to make the black boxes go all the way, bleed all the way to the end here. So there's one. There's one black box. And there's another black box. Now we can see all the work that we've done. Now, the last thing we need to do is get this center image. This is basically just the front cover image, but they've changed it to black and white and changed all of the black line to orange. So in our case, it's going to be ALF brown. My front cover uses the cover to ALF number 2. So how do we easily make this just a black line drawing? Well, the first thing we're going to do is change RGB to CMYK mode. And I'm going to adjust the levels so that it becomes a little bit washed out. But we want the black line to stay kind of dark here, so let's keep the line. And then I'm going to delete all of my channels down here. I'm going to delete these channels. Delete the cyan, delete the magenta, delete the yellow. So all we're left with is the black line. This works especially well with comic books since it's all inked with black. Doesn't work very well for modern computer coloring and that kind of stuff, where it's not necessarily a black outline over everything. Now let's make sure that the resolution is 300. And then when we use the fill tool with the tolerance way up high, like 95, we should be able to get all of these different gray tones for the most part when we use the tool brush. So let's See if that works. Okay, didn't get quite all of the gray, so we're going to have to click in here again and see if that fills it up. That's taking care of most of it, it looks like, so let's just go with that. Hey, it looks pretty sharp. So let's copy this image, select all, copy, bring it over here, and we'll place it underneath those rectangles. And we're going to have to resize it. And we're going to want to leave a little bit. Here's our border. We want some of it to bleed over to the edge. I guess we don't need too much, but we do want to have some room. There's ALF right there. We don't get to see any of the family's face, but that's okay. Now, I don't like this big line down here, or this the corner box that you can see, so we're going to get rid of those. So let's just block off an area here and color it in white. Oops, white. There it is. That's the first half of our title page. Looks pretty sharp. I like it. The back half, this page doesn't exist in the Epic collections. It would normally be like the first page of the first comic. So we're going to have to come up with something here. But I like what the Omnis do. The Marvel Omnibus volumes have all of the cover pages for all of the issues on one big page. So why don't we do something like that here? You can grab all of these covers online. There are various different sites that have a good archive of comic book covers. We're going to have to make a little wild guess. I have 9 issues plus the annual, so we're going to do 3 rows of 3 and 1 row of 1. Let's just eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I like that. I think I'm going to put an orange border around it, like the other stuff that I'm doing, like the bonus material that I'm making, which I'll show you in another video. Stroke. I want it to be ALF brown. There we go. So let's mask off this so we can get some exact sizes here. I want all of them to be the same. So let's just line that up in the corner. They should snap to the guidelines there. So you get the drill. I think I'm going to speed this up just so that this video doesn't take forever. Of course, they don't all fit. I misjudged. So I'm going to have to, I selected all of the layers, and we're going to place them roughly in the center. I think because this line is here, I gotta get rid of that line. Hopefully this will give me the line, the center line. Maybe it's not gonna give it to me. Ah, there we go. That's the center of this back cover right there. One last thing, let's one more big black box to go in behind these covers. And there we go, that's our title page. Pretty good, I think it looks nice. I like the orange border around all of these, very cool. Don't forget to save. I haven't saved this yet. The nice thing about this now is now that you have this here, you just have to swap in the covers for volume 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just have to swap in these covers and swap in this image, change the words down here. Oh, look at that, I've got a spelling mistake. I found spelling mistakes in my table of contents as well. You need to go through everything many times and maybe even have someone else look over your words, because there will always be mistakes that you just don't catch. Like this W, for instance, also is the wrong size. I didn't shrink the size of that. There. Good thing we caught that mistake, especially that ALF. That would have been embarrassing. Whoa. Now we can save it. Save it again. Now we're ready for the printer. And what we're going to do now is open up Illustrator. We're going to create a new file that's going to be the dimensions of the image that we just did. So we're going to make it the exact dimensions of the comic book pages. So the height is 1025. The width is, I've already worked this out. It's going to be the double length, the width. We're going to do two artboards, one for the front, which is the title page, and one for the back, which is the table of contents. And make sure that you set yourself an inch of bleed on all sides. CMYK color, that's important, and 300 DPI. Then you can create. And here are our two artboards. We're going to put the title page on one and the table contents of the other. So you can just slide the title page PSD right in here. You see that? The red border indicates the bleed. So this is the actual size of our comic book page. And everything up to here is the trimmable stuff, the bleed. So we've already set, you can see the black line coming down here in this place, and we can drag over the table of contents. Whoa, this one's so much bigger. I think that this one didn't have as much bleed space. I'm gonna have to eyeball it. But I think that looks about right, this being the edge. Let's just call it that. There's still enough bleed that we have some trimmable space. That's okay. There we go. Now you may want to save this as well, just as a backup. We're also going to want to save this as a PDF. When you save it as a PDF, this little window pops up. The only thing that I think that you need to know is that you should make sure you put your printer marks on, so we know where to crop our page when it's printed out. So save this as a PDF. And you can open up your PDF and take a look at it, and you should be able to see the printer marks here. And if you zoom in a little bit, you can see your crop lines right there. So this is where we're going to crop along here and down there, and then you'll have to fold it in the middle. So there's one page and there's the other. We did it, guys. We did it. Now you can take it to the printer. Well, there we go. That was a doozy, wasn't it? I hope that you were all able to follow along with what I was doing. I was able to go to the printer and print off the finished product. This is what it looks like when it's printed out. Pretty cool. I'll show some close-ups of it in a second. Did you all notice the mistake that I made? I had the wrong cover here, and I put cover number 10 in the spot of cover number 9. That's why you always need to go over these like 3 times to make sure that all of your pictures and pieces are in the right order, because you know, once you print this out, either you're stuck with the mistake or you got to spend some more money to print it out again. Some of you have asked, well, what about the legal ramifications of printing copyrighted material? I took my picture to Staples and they wouldn't print it because there was a picture of Superman on it. True, this is copyrighted material. Staples is not the right place to go for this, obviously. So I would try and look for a smaller community-based mom and pop kind of organization that you know, they're usually doubled with FedEx outposts and stuff like that. Those places are much more willing to skirt the issues a little bit just because they want your business. This is a dead property. ALF is 35 years old and it's not making any news or any new material. I think that you'll probably be fine. But anyway, that's up to you to decide and to see what you can do. If you can't find a print shop that'll print it for you, you may have to just go with your own printer. So the last thing we have to do is cut it out and get it ready for including in our project. So let's do that. Here we are at my paper cutter. You can see I've got my artwork. In fact, I've got all 6 of my table of contents printed out. I was able to go to the printer this morning and print them all out. A couple of things I learned. You don't need as much bleed as I was giving. I was giving it an inch of bleed, and in fact, there was so much bleed that printing it at 100% was bigger than this 11 by 17 page. It cut off some of the top and the bottom. The printer was a little confused with what I wanted. So to alleviate the confusion, maybe just give yourself ½ an inch, or I think even I've given myself 1/4 of an inch here, and it's actually just fine. So you can make those adjustments in your own file. And you can see this actually is printed out really nicely. We made sure that we had the crop marks on here. So these lines here are where we're going to be cutting across on our paper cutter. You want to see what these look like very quickly. Here's volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, volume 5, and of course, volume 6 with the seal cover. Well, I'm going to put some of these aside and we'll get to working with just volume 1. Now this is thick paper. I'm using 100 weight text stock, and you can see if the printer you go to has that. The reason I'm using thicker paper is because we're going to fold this in half and then we're going to bind it into our book. We're going to actually sew, and if you have a thinner paper, it's going to make the sewing a little harder because it'll be much more prone to ripping and tearing. When you have, you know, really thin newsprint like this, it's also prone to ripping. But when you stacked it up, you know, 16 pages on top of each other, they work together to prevent it from ripping. But this one's going to be the only one page that we're going to sew in, so it needs to, I think it needs to be a little bit thicker. Okay, so I've got a couple of tools. Of course, I have a ruler, I've got a pencil, and I've got a scoring tool because we're going to have to use this to score along the center to make it fold easy. You can pick these up at, you know, an art store, that kind of thing, or order it online. One thing I also learned is that when this goes through the printer and you do it double-sided, the crop marks don't actually line up. There's a tiny little bit of a difference. So I definitely want this side to be cropped at the proper crop marks because it has a very definitive center mark right down the middle. This side, if it's off just slightly, doesn't matter because there's nothing that's, there's a lot of wiggle room in the middle here. So we're going to be cropping along the top on this side here. One thing that we're going to want to do is make sure that we indicate where the crop marks are going to be on the long side, because we're going to crop the front side first, and once we crop the front side, these crop marks are going to fall off. So my ruler isn't quite long enough, so I'm just going to have to use this edge as a guide to square it up. And just lightly draw my line. And do it again on this side. Watch out, there's a hole right there. You don't want to tear a big hole in your paper. I should be doing this on a flat surface, shouldn't I? There we go. So that's that. Take out your guide. Watch your fingers. So I did that a little crooked, but that's okay because we're going to be trimming off still a little bit when we go to sand our book block down. But let's try and get that a little bit more square this time. That looks about right. Okay, did about the same, but that's okay. Now we can see where the marks are here. Then around this side. There we go. That's it so far. Now, take your ruler again, your scoring tool, and we're going to score this side right along the center line, which is where the white box ends, to make our folding mark. And we can fold it right on the edge there. And there it is. There's our table of contents. Looks pretty good. So when we have our book, it's going to be the front page. Here's a little idea of what our book is going to look like. Not bad at all. Thanks for watching my video, everybody. I have one more Photoshop video for you next time, and it's going to be about making bonus material that we can stick at the back of each one of the volumes of our ALF Epic collections. So stay tuned for that, and I hope you're having fun building your own custom ALF Epic collections.